Here is something your doctor probably never told you. Every single night, while you're sleeping, your body quietly activates a biological self-repair system that cleans damaged cells, rebuilds mitochondria, and recalibrates your metabolism. Scientists have known about this process for decades, but it only kicks in fully and stays active long enough to do its job if you go long enough without eating. This isn't a fad. This isn't biohacking nonsense. This is backed by over a century of fasting research, multiple Nobel Prizes, and thousands of clinical trials across dozens of diseases. And here's the part that should genuinely stop you. Most people in the modern world never trigger this system at all. They eat too late, too often, and too close to bedtime, and they are biologically never allowing their body to repair itself the way it was designed to. Today, we're going to change that. I'm going to show you exactly what happens inside your body when you stop eating, why those hours of fasting matter more than any supplement you'll ever take, and how to structure this practically around your real life without destroying your energy or your sanity. Let's get into the biology.
Part 1. What actually happens when you fast? Most people think fasting is just about eating less. It's not. It triggers a completely different metabolic state, one your body was literally built to enter. When you eat normally, your cells run primarily on glucose, the sugar that comes from breaking down carbohydrates. After a meal, glucose floods your bloodstream. Insulin rises to manage it, and any excess gets converted into triglycerides and packed away into fat tissue for later. Now extend the gap between meals far enough, past 8 to 12 hours, and something shifts. Your blood glucose drops, insulin falls, and your body, now running low on readily available fuel, pivots to a completely different energy strategy. It starts dismantling your stored fat. Your fat tissue releases fatty acids into the bloodstream. Those fatty acids travel to your liver, which converts them into compounds called ketone bodies, or ketones. Ketones then circulate through the body as an alternative fuel source, powering your brain, heart, and muscles, just as effectively as glucose does, and in some tissues, even more efficiently. By around 12 hours of fasting, your blood ketones reach approximately 0.2 to 0.5 millimolars. By 48 hours, they can climb to 1 to 2 millimolars. But you don't need a 48-hour fast to see benefits. The 12 to 24-hour window is where most of the interesting biology happens, and it's completely accessible. But ketones aren't just fuel, they're signaling molecules, and what they signal to yourselves is the part most people never hear about.
Part 2. The 4 things fasting does to your biology. First, it forces your mitochondria to get stronger. Mitochondria are the energy factories inside your cells. Every process your body runs, movement, cognition, immune response, cellular repair, depends on healthy mitochondria producing ATP efficiently. In people with metabolic dysfunction or obesity, mitochondrial performance degrades over time. Fasting has been shown to reverse this. By cycling the body into and out of the fasted state, mitochondria are stimulated to repair, multiply, and increase their efficiency. Second, it activates cellular stress resistance. When you deprive yourselves of nutrients for an extended period, they don't simply weaken, they upregulate their own protective systems. This is a process called hormesis, the same principle behind why exercise makes you stronger. The temporary stress of fasting forces cells to reinforce their defenses against oxidative damage, inflammation, and accelerated aging. Third, and this is the one that's earning the most attention in research right now, it triggers autophagy. The word comes from Greek, auto meaning self, phagy meaning eating. Autophagy is your body's cellular recycling system. When it's activated, your cells identify and break down damaged proteins, malfunctioning organelles, and other accumulated biological debris, the cellular equivalent of taking out the trash. When autophagy doesn't run adequately, that cellular garbage accumulates. Your immune system mounts a low-grade inflammatory response against it, and that chronic, smoldering inflammation is now recognized as a root driver of nearly every major disease: cancer, Alzheimer's, heart disease, type 2 diabetes, and autoimmune conditions. The scientist who decoded autophagy's mechanism, Yoshinori Ohsumi, won the Nobel Prize in Medicine in 2016 for that work alone. Fourth, the recovery phase builds you back stronger. When you eventually eat and break your fast, your body doesn't simply return to baseline. In what researchers call the post-fasting recovery phase, there's an increase in protein synthesis, mitochondrial growth, and cellular plasticity. the ability of cells to adapt and function better in changing conditions. This is the metabolic switching cycle. Ketones during fasting, glucose during feeding. And the alternation between the two is what drives the long-term benefits. This is a critical distinction from the ketogenic diet. The goal isn't to stay in ketosis permanently. The goal is to move in and out of it regularly, giving your body the benefits of both metabolic states.
Part 3. Your circadian rhythm and why timing is everything. Here's where fasting gets genuinely fascinating, and where most people implementing it get it subtly wrong. Your body runs on a 24-hour biological clock called the circadian rhythm. Almost every cell in your body has its own internal clock, synchronized to a master clock in your brain's hypothalamus, which in turn is calibrated by light and darkness. These clocks govern metabolism, hormone release, immune function, DNA repair, and dozens of other systems. Here's what the research consistently shows. Your metabolism is dramatically more efficient at handling food during daylight hours than at night. Insulin sensitivity is higher in the morning. Glucose clearance is faster. Fat storage is lower. Blood pressure regulation is sharper. A landmark 2020 study found that participants who ate the same caloric intake and the same food composition, but shifted their eating window earlier in the day, had significantly lower post-meal blood sugar, reduced fat production, and better blood pressure control compared to those eating those same calories later. Same food, same calories. The timing changed the outcome. Late-night eating isn't just a cultural habit, it's a biological mismatch. Your body is not equipped to efficiently process food at midnight. The metabolic machinery that handles glucose and fat is winding down for the night, not ramping up. This is why the most effective fasting protocols align your eating window with daylight, ideally finishing your last meal in the early evening and not eating again until mid-morning or later the next day.
I want to stop here for a second, because what you just heard is the part that changes everything for most people. It's not just whether you're fasting, it's when you're fasting. And if your eating window runs from noon to midnight, you're capturing almost none of the metabolic benefit we just talked about, and you're fighting your own biology every single night. Let me show you how to structure this so it actually works. Part 4, the types of fasting and how to choose. Time-restricted eating, or TRE, is the simplest and most sustainable approach. You set a specific eating window each day and fast outside of it. No calorie counting, no complicated rules about macros, just a window. The most researched protocols are the 16-8, 16 hours fasting, 8 hours eating, and the 12-12, 12 hours of each, aligned with daylight. During your fasting window, you can drink water, plain black coffee, or unsweetened tea, nothing that triggers an insulin response. A University of Alabama study of pre-diabetic men found that those eating all their meals between 7 a.m. and 3 p.m., an 8-hour window, had meaningfully better insulin sensitivity and lower blood pressure than men eating the same calories over a 12-hour window. Neither group gained or lost weight. The metabolic difference was purely from timing. Periodic fasting takes a different approach. 5 days of the week you eat normally. On 1 or 2 non-consecutive days, you either eat nothing or drop to roughly 500 to 600 calories. The 5-2 method is the best-known version of this approach. It offers more flexibility week to week while still producing extended fasting periods. Modified alternate day fasting, or MAD-AF, alternates between full eating days and heavily restricted days 3 to 5 times per week. A 2021 meta-analysis found that both the 5-2 and MAD-AF protocols were most strongly associated with successful fat loss compared to other fasting structures. How to actually implement this without burning out? The research suggests tapering into fasting over approximately 4 months rather than switching cold turkey. Your first month, try a 10 to 12-hour eating window on weekdays, eating normally on weekends. Month 2, pull the window tighter to 8 to 10 hours. Month 3, aim for a 6 to 8 hour window, shifting it earlier in the day. Month 4, make it a consistent daily habit. The key isn't perfection, it's gradual adaptation. Hunger hormones, circadian signaling, and metabolic flexibility all take weeks to recalibrate.
Part 5, the real health benefits, backed by numbers. Weight loss and body composition. A 2020 review of 27 clinical trials found that fasting produced weight loss ranging from 0.8% to 13% of baseline body weight. A separate systematic review of 40 studies found typical losses of 7 to 11 pounds over 10 weeks. Critically, fasting appears to preferentially reduce fat while preserving muscle mass, but only when combined with adequate protein intake and resistance training. Without those two elements, muscle loss becomes a risk, particularly in older adults. Insulin sensitivity. Multiple independent studies across different populations have shown fasting significantly improves insulin sensitivity, how effectively your cells respond to insulin.
Greater sensitivity means your pancreas needs to produce less insulin to manage blood glucose. Lower chronic insulin levels reduce diabetes risk, support weight loss, and are one of the strongest markers of long-term metabolic health. Brain function. Fasting upregulates a protein called BDNF, brain-derived neurotrophic factor, which supports neuron growth, learning, and memory. A clinical trial in adults around age 60 found that a 30% caloric restriction over a short period meaningfully improved verbal memory scores. Researchers theorize this reflects increased synaptic plasticity driven by improved insulin sensitivity and lower neurological inflammation. Ongoing studies are examining fasting's role in the prevention of Alzheimer's disease, Parkinson's, and other neurodegenerative conditions. Immune system and inflammation. Autophagy, which fasting robustly activates, is central to immune regulation. Dysfunctional autophagy is associated with nearly every chronic inflammatory condition. By keeping autophagy running efficiently, fasting appears to reduce baseline inflammatory markers in the blood, including CRP and interleukin-6. Cancer research is actively exploring fasting's potential to suppress tumor growth and sensitize cancer cells to chemotherapy. Initial animal studies are promising, and human trials are underway.
Part 6. What to eat when you break your fast. Fasting doesn't mean you've earned the right to eat junk. The food quality during your eating window determines how much of the biological work fasting does actually pays off. Highly processed foods, what researchers now call ultra-processed foods, or UPFs, actively undermine the metabolic improvements you build during fasting. They spike insulin sharply, drive inflammation, impair autophagy, and are engineered to override your satiety signals, causing overconsumption even when you're in a restricted eating window. One controlled study gave participants 2 weeks of whole foods they could eat freely, then 2 weeks of ultra-processed foods they could eat freely. Participants consistently ate significantly more in terms of both calories and rate during the UPF phase, despite the meals being matched on paper for protein and macronutrients. During your eating window, build meals around vegetables and whole fruits, prioritizing vegetables, whole grains with intact fiber, lean or plant-based protein sources, and minimally processed fats from whole foods. Think of the Harvard Healthy Eating Plate as a practical template. Half the plate vegetables and fruit, a quarter whole grains, a quarter protein. The research is increasingly clear that pairing fasting with a Mediterranean-style dietary pattern may be the most effective long-term combination for metabolic health, body composition, and disease prevention.
Here's the thing nobody in the fasting world wants to say out loud. Fasting will not save you if you're eating garbage during your eating window, sleeping 4 hours a night, and sitting still all day. The biology we've covered today is real and powerful, but it's one piece of a system, not a standalone solution. What fasting does, done correctly, is give your body the time it needs to do what it was already designed to do: repair, recalibrate, and rebuild. Every night, your biology is ready to run that process. The only question is whether you let it. You don't have to do a 72-hour water fast. You don't have to count macros. Start with a 12-hour window. Eat your last meal earlier. Don't eat within 2 or 3 hours of sleep. That alone consistently changes the metabolic trajectory of your long-term health. Your body has been waiting for this signal. Give it the time it needs.